Hi, I'm Abby and I've just completed my AS English Language course.
I'm Jacob and I've also just completed my AS English Language course.
Okay. What have you learnt about reading and annotating data?
Learned to be more efficient about it. Like GCSE, you look through and you usually wait for the teacher to say something, or you only make a couple of notes. But AS level, you really learn how to power through and how to see a lot of different things in just about every line.
Yeah, and it's a lot more in depth than it was at GCSE, and I've learnt that you're taught to pick out much more subtle techniques within the text rather than just looking on top.
What about the grouping text question?
Once again, everything's analysed in a lot of detail, and everything does have to be backed up by context, audience and purpose.
Yeah, I saw how to... Over time, you sort of learn how to see subtle similarities between texts. Like you learn surface meanings for it, but then as you go further into the course, you see sort of underlying things, like why was it done in terms of stuff for the language and social context, which you can then put into the groupings. So it all sorts of bleeds through to each other.
And what about the language and social context part of the course, the gender power or ICT?
I've learnt that the social contexts have a great influence on the way that texts are actually put together. For example, the way the language is presented due to ICT or gender. And you actually learn that a lot of the techniques used within a text are greatly related to the context.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
What about study skills, exam study skills? What have you learnt about that?
This is confidence building. We can edit that out. So better ways to revise. So not so much sort of sitting down and constantly rereading text, which you can't do with language because you don't have text anyway, but more how you can look back over stuff you've done in class notes and learn from that and see, well, I did that because of that, so I should look out for that in the exam.
And what have you noticed maybe about class contributions as well at AS?
Everyone's contributing. It's not like you don't get one or two people who are really into the subject who are just saying everything. Most people do put in to the whole course, and you get a lot of different ideas coming together, and it makes for a much better class experience, more wide and lively debate.
Yeah, because everyone's actually chosen the subject rather than
being forced into it.
Everyone within the class does make a lot of contributions, which then does help you as an individual to gather more ideas.
And exam techniques, have you got any tips on those? Or
definitely make a plan before, when doing an exam.
So.
Yeah, you think there's not that much time, but by making a plan, you'll realise that you do have more time overall because you can keep relating back to the plan.
So one of my fears was, but if I spend those 15 minutes planning, then I'd take about 15 minutes to write. But because I spent the 15 minutes planning, it takes a lot of time that I need to think about what I was going to write next, and it all works and connects together. So it also improves your grade quite a bit as well.
Any revision tips then? Overall revision tips?
Don't leave it until the last minute. Fair enough, you do most of your revision during the month of exam leave. That's acceptable. But don't leave it until the last couple of days before exams, and don't do nothing up until you break up for exams.
Yeah, and manage the time well, rather than cramming it all in. Try and spread it out from the start of the course. So then you're picking up everything as you go along, rather before you go into the exam.
Okay, and how did you find the AS exam experience?
Difficult at times, but it was quite enjoyable overall once you really got into it, because you start to look at things that we see all the time, but you look at them in a different way. So when I hear conversations, I sort of notice things people do based on what I've learned in the course.
Yeah, I found it quite difficult as well, but overall it was quite enjoyable learning everything throughout the course. So...
Okay, and if we talk about coursework and the creating text section of the course, what top tips could you give about the process and production of the 2 pieces of writing you have completed?
In terms of getting ideas, you'll get a lot in class because you go through a lot of different kinds of text. So you go through speeches, you'll go through letters, and you'll go through short stories, full stories, openings, chapters and stuff. And that will give you a lot of ideas to be going with. And because you've done that, you'll then sort of go home and you'll start to see other things in terms of how they could work with your coursework. And you will almost certainly get something within about a couple of weeks or so.
Yeah, I'd say for getting ideas as well, before making a final idea on something, actually research different ideas, because once you find one idea, that links to another, and then as Jacob said, it just links to broader ideas as well.
Okay, and what about the sort of the planning and preparation of the coursework? Have you got any tips on that as well?
Take 1,000 notes.
Yeah, any ideas write down and keep as well, because that's
that all goes into your
evidence
journal
as well. Any drafts as well, pick up notes from your drafts, because that's crucial for your final piece as well.
In terms of actually drafting your coursework, it can always definitely plan beforehand. Some people would like to dive just straight into it, but you need to have quite a good idea of where you're going to go, so you don't look back at it. So when you hand it in as a draft, your teacher doesn't point out that doesn't really connect to the beginning doesn't connect to the rest of it. And if you take it slowly, so you're not rushing yourself, but at the same time, if you get a good idea in your head, run with it for a while. But when you hit a block, stop, because that won't take you anywhere.
What about time management with coursework? How did you find that?
I'd say it is quite a tight time schedule, but if you stick to drafting and then finding style models and then obviously commentaries, if you manage your time well, you'll find you will have enough time to do something, then redo it again, and then make sure it is perfect. And then,
even if you can just afford 15 minutes every evening,
Yeah.
you will still get it done quicker than most people, because a lot of people will leave it to the last couple of days. But if you can just do a little bit every night, like even if it's just planning the next bit or typing a couple of sentences, it will all build up.
Okay, and what about any top tips that you could provide about the process and production of the 2 commentaries? How did you find that?
I found commentaries very hard, because a lot of people are often intimidated by the amount you have to write for the actual coursework, and then they're told, 500 words to your commentary. And that sounds quite nice, but when you realise how little 500 word actually is, and how much you have to write, it can throw you off. But if you just ask your teacher for help, get models of like what other people have done, and take a few goes, you'll find it will really help you.
yeah, I think something that's quite important for the commentaries is to ensure that you know the exact structure as well of how to write a commentary, because then you can organise it into a way that you think is going to work, and also make sure that you're not actually going to go over the word limit, but say everything that you need to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Wave bye.
I'm too cool.
Bye.